Welcome to today's Destination Unknown. I'm your host, Alyssa Hall, and today I have a very special guest. I'm super psyched. This is our first time meeting each other, air quotes, because my guest today is Zorian Cross. Zorian is in India right now. What time is it for you, Zorian?
It's about 10:05 p.m.
Oh, and my dogs are still having a great time because I guess I haven't signed any NDAs, so I can say anything I want because nothing's official. Randomly, if you hear dogs barking today during our recording, someone came to my door from the production company of what you see here. And they're doing location scouting. So they're taking pictures of my yard. It's so random. I was like, hi, I worked on your set for season. So weird. So my apologies, our dogs are barking, but in the background, that's why. And let's get into the good stuff. I am so happy to have you here today. I thought this would be a great time to have you because I saw we have known each other. Let's back this up for the people who don't know. And I'm grabbing my pee right now, literally getting my
Awesome.
pee. So we've known each other. You tell me.
I think since MySpace.
I mean, think about this. This is like the Paleozoic era.
Right? Oh my God. Yeah, I think that's where we met for the first time when MySpace was a thing. I think, remember there was the top 8 and we were just adding tarot people randomly from all over the world.
I know. And I remember a lot of our conversations on eclectic as well. You were such and had been such a huge voice on that forum. And it's something that I mention as a resource even now, because a lot of the connections I made 15, 20 years ago almost.
Oh, wow. Eclectic. I'm surprised that's still existing considering how far the internet has gone nowadays.
Honestly, as I think that it just exists partially as a resource, it's no longer an active forum, but I think a lot of the work is still out there, which is nice. I haven't gone looking in a while, but so let me talk to you about, go ahead.
No, I was saying I still sometimes go on Eclectic just to see if anyone's actually talking, or when a new deck is up, like the Tarot Deck Creator Forum, when they try to plug new stuff, I'm like, this looks interesting. Let me have a look.
I want to talk to you about if you've had bought any new decks lately, but let's hold on to that subject. I'm going to put that in your brain for the future because I want to back it up and start by talking about your most recent mention on lifestyleasia.com as one of the top 6 tarot readers in India, you guys. That's who we're talking to. Think about it. It's so bad.
I know, right?
How did that
It was the most random. Sorry?
How did that come to be? You were about to tell me how.
So it was really, really random. So I do write for sister publications for them, like I do tarot columns and stuff like that. But I've never really officially promoted myself as a tarot reader. Like if you Google me, you'll mostly find my theater work on YouTube. You'll find interviews of my LGBT rights activism and stuff like that. But I don't know. I mean, even though I do read tarot professionally, I've always steered away from the whole promote yourself as a psychic reader because instantly, whenever I see people pimping out their tarot stuff, I just think of shady neon sign doors, a gypsy mama saying, oh, there's a curse on you. The death card has come. Pay me $1 zillion to remove it and get me a dead chicken to do so.
Absolutely. I know. And I think that that's one of the things, we have the same mentality and approach when it comes to tarot. And that's something that I've encouraged here on Destination Unknown is to take that more intellectual, be a skeptic, be skeptical of people who are out there promoting themselves in tarot, because there are so many people who take advantage of our field.
Oh, completely. I mean, let's face it, every field has a ton of scam artists. Like, look at the stock market and everything. But I think with the tarot, let's face it, fortune telling appeals to greed. Only greedy people really want to know about the future. If you come down to the basics, a person who's very secure in themselves, they don't really care about what's going to happen. But, people are insecure, people who are greedy, people who are needy or desperate. That's the kind of person who unfortunately wants to know about the future. I'm not saying that people are genuinely in need, like are going through crisis and stuff. But 90% of the time, especially if it's in a carnival or stuff like that, they're like, ooh, a tarot reader, let's find out about a love. Or some desperate person comes up to you saying, is Billy the one? Is Johnny going to pop the ring or whatever? And I've never encouraged that. Like, whenever people start asking me questions like that, I just give them their money back and shoot them away.
See, and that's what makes us so reputable, right? Because we do say no. There are things, what else do you say no to? That's a topic that I've brought up in the past. And I will preface it by saying, for me, I will not read on health matters. So if it has to deal with someone's, and fertility is an issue that's a gray area. Even that one to me is a health related. That for me is a no-go. What about you?
So I don't take like proper medical questions, but because I've studied a lot of alternative healing systems, like I've done a course in Ayurvedic medicine, I've done a course, and I'm a professional yoga teacher. I've also done yoga TTC, specializing in anatomy and stuff like that. So I tell them forefront that don't ask me about medication. I'm not a doctor. And 90% of the time I tell people you need therapy, go see a therapist.
Yeah, because I'm not one.
Yeah, I just read the cards. I don't read your psyche or whatever. But but when it comes to health, I go from a more holistic approach. Like, if let's say someone's coming to me and they're asking about their health and well-being, and I do a typical, let's say, 7-card chakra spread where I look at the chakras. I apply my yoga knowledge in that and tell them, okay, this from a yogic point of view, this is what this card could mean. And, you link it all up because, if you go by Golden Dawn systems of tarot, and tarot is linked to astrology, numerology, Kabbalah, yoga, etc. So, use the correspondences, and somehow it just works. But I still tell them go to a doctor and get something out. Only if I see like a really sketchy card, like if I see like a 9 of Swords come in the sacral chakra, which is the fertility chakra, I just say, when's the last time you've been to your gyno? Why don't you go get a checkup? I don't want to brag, but a lot of times they do come back to me and think, okay, my gyno found this, so my gyno found that, and also I don't tell them you have a cyst. I just say have a checkup just to be safe.
I think that's a great approach. And honestly, people who have not yet seen your Instagram to see all your amazing yoga poses, oh my God, you got to get to that. Give everyone the information on where they can follow you and get in touch with you.
So my Instagram is not a very glamorous one, but it's called Ajna Jog. That's AJNAJOG, which in Sanskrit means the psychic yogi, which is kind of what I am, a psychic yogi. I purposely haven't even put my name on my Instagram. I've not even promoted it, or like sketchy Insta tarot people bought followers and likes, because I always feel that, when we're in this field where, let's face it, we're playing with destiny on some level, whether you're a skeptic or whether you're a complete believer, whether you just play it for fun, at the end, you are playing with destiny. Even call it synchronicity, call it whatever, but when you pull a card, even if you don't believe that it's the universe guiding your hand to pull it, when you read the card on some level, it is going to affect your mind psychologically when you read it. We all know how people who get paranoid about their readings can just fly off the handle, right? So that's why I've never been the one to encourage people like, oh, I'm giving a discount today, Monday discount, full moon special readings and all, because to me that's just a scam. It's like, why do you have to tempt yourself out if you're doing something which is something almost spiritual but at the same time incredibly practical? I'm sorry, am I coming across really pretentious right now?
No, not at all. I think you give a great point of view. I completely agree with what you're saying. And one of the things I appreciate so much is I have been kind of a solitary voice in a lot of ways on this channel, and opening up more dialogue is something that we're focusing on now, kind of in my second quarter of growth here on the channel. And so talking to people like yourself and getting your authentic viewpoints from another place on the entire part of the globe, and another culture, another everything, this is fascinating to me. And seeing it through your filter, because I've studied a Hindu path for over 25 years. So when you talk about the chakras, when you talk about Ayurvedic, I go into my Spanish, Ayurvedic medicine. I was trying to say Ayurvedic, and it's like, no, don't roll the R. Anyway, I know what I'm trying to say, even if my tongue can't, but I appreciate your point of view is my point. And that to me is far more interesting. Do you see, because I see you as someone who is very versed. You have so many contacts in not only your country, but in America as well. What stylistic differences do you think? I kind of hear you right now saying there's definitely in both cultures people who are in it for the money. But what differences do you think you would say? I know that's a generalized question, but if you would.
No. There are quite a lot of differences. So I've noticed something which I guess Indians have a lot of commonality with the Latin culture in terms of psychics. Like we are big believers in psychic abilities and stuff, which is something I've seen in the Latin community quite a lot. Like I dated this Chilean guy, and he had a abuela who would read cards for him, and he would tell me that she was very particular and she would practice Santeria and stuff like that. So, and I dated a guy from Italy who also had an aunt who would read cards. So I've noticed in a lot of Latin cultures and Mediterranean cultures, they do put a lot of emphasis on psychic abilities and wise women of the culture, despite Catholicism being there. But we all know Catholicism is basically witchcraft.
That vibes with my culture out here in the Southwest, here in America, because we are very Latinx influenced, as well as our Native American culture that is part of our area. And you see that tricultural effect taking place. Yeah. So if here a local word would be the curandera, is the medicine woman. And so that's much more of the Southwestern version of the Latin culture, in the same way where there's a very strong spiritual tie. There's much more of an acceptance of the intuitive self and the intuitive dialogue. Maybe it's just that some Western culture gets very skeptical and locked up in the skepticism. What is it?
I personally feel like, okay, I'll come back to how Indians view psychic things a little later, but since there's a very good thing about the Western viewpoint, at least from my perspective, I'm not groundsplaining my views on the West or anything. Okay, so from my limited myopic viewpoint, whatever I've noticed, I think that skepticism comes from the fact that, especially in America, where there's still like debates and education regarding creationism and Darwinism in terms of creation, and how there's so much interference of the religious right trying to stop scientific discovery, talk about negative things about scientific development. I think all that gets clubbed up into superstition, be it religion, tarot, and also people see it as skeptical or whatever, and they'll just think it's mumbo jumbo. And I think it's not about the psychic practices, but it's basically about right-wing religion that's kind of put everything down. Like, I've also noticed, like, whenever I've, had readers come, like, Delhi is a pretty international city. We have people living from all over the world and everything. So whenever I've had people come from North America, Canada, or the US for my readings, or even people from England or whatever, although British people are more open to the tarot compared to Americans.
Really? That's a cool interpretation. I wouldn't have come to that. Keep going.
Sorry, if I ramble, just let me know. I'll come to
No,
the
I'm
point.
fascinated. Keep going. I just had to interject and say, wow, I wouldn't have expected that. Go ahead.
So, like, whenever I've had people from America, which by that I mean the United States and Canada, um, they've always like either scoffed at it or they've kind of like, been like, okay, we're just here just to check it out, or they'll just be curious, but slowly as the reading opens, they start opening up a bit. But there's always an air of skepticity. And they always have this thing that, oh, can I pull another card just to confirm and stuff like that?
Yes, that's a phenomenon. You landed on a subject I've talked about. I always call it the clarifier card. And like, God forbid, if you open the reading at any point as a reader and you say, let's pull a clarifier card, because once they know that door is open and available, it's like, oh, look out, let's pull another one, and too much information. I don't do.
That's why I never pull clarifiers. I never pull clarifiers. But I do believe that when a card falls out while you're shuffling, like if it's one or two or three cards, that's the message. If it's four or more, you're just butterfingers.
Yes, thank you. You've landed on another subject we talk about a lot here on the channel, which is the jumpers. That's what, I've always
Mm-hmm.
called them. It's some folks,
Yeah.
but yeah, if a jumper comes out. Now here, let me ask you this. First, I'll preface it with my own interpretation. If I get a jumper and I'm shuffling and I know I haven't posed a question yet, to me, that is a way, if I'm either with a sitter or for myself, it's almost like the universe just handing me a mirror and saying, here's what you look like
Yeah.
right now. You agree with that?
Completely. In fact, I just did a reading the other day for someone, and it was like a reading that went on for hours. Like, I'm not the kind of person who does like 20, 30-minute readings. I'm like, you're with me. We're just going to get it all done with out of the system. Yeah. So, not a good business model, but that's how I operate. But
Oh, it's so
anyway, so this reading
authentic.
last, it's what I do. So anyway, this reading lasted for about 3.5 hours. And at the end of my readings, I like to pull oracle cards. Just to, kind of tie it all up because, sometimes the tarot can be so much. Sometimes an oracle card with the message just sums it all up.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
I love
And
oracles. Yeah, I don't
yeah,
often incorporate both in a sitting. I mean, it's very it's not unheard of, but it is kind of unique, I think. Keep going.
well, I like them because, sometimes, reading the tarot can get a little too, and more than anything, I believe in empowering people who come to me versus like, doom and glooming people who come to me. So that's why I end with an oracle. And this person, obviously, I'm not going to name names, but they had a lot of issues regarding forgiving a lot of people in the past. And literally, the reading had ended. We said goodbye. And he was typing something, and I was just shuffling to put my cards back. This was happening online because we live in COVID times. But as I was shuffling while he was still typing something, a card fell out and it was forgiveness.
Oh, see, it's like here, psh, here's the
Jumpers work. Jumpers work. They are the true blue thing. Like, that's divine intervention happening in tarot.
For real, because I've also talked really early. One of my goals here for this was to put forth a lot of information for readers who maybe are new on their path and to dispel a lot of the myths and the superstitions so that they can empower themselves and their reading. And so because of that, oh my gosh, my hamster just jumped off the wheel. I just got an error message come up on my computer and it knocked me right out of my moment. Um, Jumpers are great. Let's leave it with that. Jumpers definitely speak to me. And Oracle cards in general, is there a deck that you lean towards? I love the fairies, the Froud Fairy deck. That's like one of my favorite oracles, but it's not the only one that I use. What do you like?
Okay, so I have two oracles that I currently use in front of me for reading.
Show me.
This is the Carl Gray Keepers of the Light. Can you
Pretty.
see?
Yeah, I sure can. How big are the cards?
Oh, I'm just taking the cards out. Pretty decent size.
Oh yeah, okay, kind of like average, like sized, a little bit
Kind
large.
of like average oracle size, yeah,
Yeah, a little larger.
with the gilded edges and all.
That's pretty, huh? Those are like the kind that, oh, how do you shuffle? What's your shuffle style? Let's talk about that for a second.
Uh, I googled this, and it's actually called the Indian Shuffle.
Really? I've
Yeah.
not seen that. Show me again. So you're just
So
pulling from the bottom.
yeah, and just put one on top of the other.
Okay. I'm grabbing a deck.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so okay, I'm going from the bottom to, oh, let me show the camera here. Oh
From
God.
the bottom to the top.
So it's kind of like, see, what I do is I lace. Let me get my teacup out of the way because I absolutely will drop my brand new cards in my teacup. That would be terrible. I don't know if I can, here we go. So I lace, which is kind of the same concept. It's pulling it from the back, but instead of dealing flat, I let gravity. This is a brand new deck, you guys. It's so slick right now. Oh my gosh. You know, when you first get your deck and I've never even read with this one yet. Let's talk about new decks, by the way. Oh, you didn't show me your second oracle. I'm jumping ahead. So let's talk about that. Do I still have you? Are you frozen? Uh-oh. We might have frozen up. If you can hear me, this is our reality. Oh my gosh. Come back, Zorian. I will try to shuffle. Uh-oh. Okay, so now we've got just me for the recording for the moment. Hey, here he comes. All right. Hey, you're muted.
Hi, I'm so sorry,
It's okay.
internet.
It happens on my end all the time. I live in the mountains, and so my internet gets really spotty at times. So, okay, so what I was trying to show you, I'm holding my arms above my head so it's in the camera, and it makes it even more hard with a slick new deck. It's kind of the same. I pull a chunk from the bottom and then use my thumb to pull.
Uh,
And I've heard that called lacing the deck, is what I've always
ah,
heard. So yours is straight flat.
yeah.
And then do you use these fingers to support the other side? Yeah.
Oh my God, I've never analyzed it so. Okay, let's see. So I hold it in my hand firm. Can you
Okay, wait.
see?
Okay. Yeah.
Like so. And then I just take a chunk from the bottom and put it on top and keep slicing it in.
I get it.
So
Okay.
it's similar to lacing, but a little different.
Yeah. And of course, this is a style of shuffling, which again does minimal damage to your deck and yet still gets you to randomize it nicely.
Exactly. And this is something that just came intuitively to me when I started reading. I made 3 shuffles of 7 flips.
And that was what I was going to ask you when my hamster jumped off the wheel earlier, was about picking the card. We were talking about the jumpers. Do you deal off the top? How do you choose your card?
I fan them out.
You fan and select. And do you select or
Yeah.
do they select?
Well, when it's in person, they select, but when it's online due to COVID, I just tell them to close their eyes and say a prayer, whatever, and I select on their behalf.
I think that's a really good solution. I really believe in the bridge that we can build through the astral, through the,
Oh,
together,
yeah.
the
Like,
spiritual.
that's why I credit Eclectic Tarot so much, because when I first joined it, there were all the reading circles where you could practice and stuff. So at first, I never thought it was possible to read online, but courtesy Eclectic Tarot and all the friends I made there, that's how I discovered that yes, you can read tarot on the internet. It's not a scam.
It's kind of wild though. I mean, it really is kind of one of those moments that when you come to everything with a very intellectual approach and you're like, prove it to me. And then tarot does. And you're like, whoa.
I love when skeptics come to me, because that's like so many times I've had skeptics come to me. I'm not tooting my horn, I'm just being honest. It's like they come with all their, like, oh, this is fake, this is whatever, fine, pull a card. I'm like, you pull a card, you shuffle. So the minute I give them a deck, they're like, oh, I have to do it. I'm like, it's your reading, so shuffle, go ahead. And slowly as stuff just comes out, like, I, I'm not saying I'm a cold reader, but you just know when they're trying to hide that, oh my God, that's so true.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely that comes through. And it's always interesting to me too, how would they think once those moments come through in the card that you somehow know everything about the situation. It's like, no, this is what the
Oh,
card
yeah.
is literally telling you. That's what I'm telling you.
One guy literally thought that I stalked him online to find out that information.
See, that's what exactly. That's what people begin. They're like, there's no way. There's no way. It's like, it's the
Yeah.
card. It's not me.
And the funny thing is, though, this one person who came to me, they were like really freaking out at the card. And I still remember, like, she was asking about her boyfriend, and the Seven of Swords came, and for lack of a better word, I was like, he's a fuckboy, just leave him. Yeah, I'm brutal that way.
Oh my God, I love that. You know what? Speaking of inappropriate language that comes up in a reading, my Two of Pentacles, especially because I'm a Rider-Waite Smith, usually, informed reader.
Mm-hmm.
That's my style I lean towards the most. And of course, he has his big hat, right? That message always comes through. It came very clearly once upon a time, and now it's like this subcurrent. Anytime this card comes up, it's also a warning not to be a dickhead. It always
Oh, yeah.
comes up that way. And it's so literal in the image that since we're talking about like when tarot gets a little inappropriate, but that's one of mine right
Oh,
there.
completely. But coming back to the fuckboy reading with Seven of Swords, she got livid. Like, so this this is at this vegan cafe I used to read at sometimes. My friends ran a vegan cafe before COVID and the shutdown. So they just asked me to read one day, and the cafe was jam packed with people getting readings and stuff. So I'd often sit there, and even though I wasn't reading there officially, I used to, so as all tarot readers, we just carry a deck just for emergency. So this girl came up to me and she was like, read about my boyfriend. I need a reading now. I was like, I'm having my lunch. Can I finish my lunch first? So
It's
anyway, after I finished lunch, she pulled the Seven of Swords for her boyfriend. I was like, okay, he's a fuckboy. Dump him. She's like, no, you're lying. You're lying. You're lying. I'm like, fine, pull again. So she reshuffled Seven of Swords.
love
She was
that.
still not satisfied. She was still not satisfied. She's like, I don't believe you. I'm not going to pay you a single bit of money. I was like, don't pay me. But if you still, I don't even care. It's like, just shuffle again for all I care. So she actually took the deck shuffle, and this time the Seven of Swords was a jumper.
Oh my gosh. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. It's like, come on.
And that's why I believe there's a divine hand somewhere guiding these things, because this is not coincidence. This is not Jungian synchronicity and all the crap white people try to justify their beliefs.
You took a point right out of my head that I didn't make earlier. I was thinking it and I never spoke it out loud when we were talking about differences between American culture and Indian culture.
Mm-hmm.
I think also a big difference that I see, and the skepticism, that part of our conversation, I think because Indian culture is so much more open to energetic awareness, no matter
Yeah.
how they couch their own religious expression of that. And I don't think
Mm-hmm.
that that's necessarily part of a lot of Western Judeo-Christian acceptance.
Well, if you think about it, India is primarily a country which has some of the oldest religions in the world.
Yes, it
Like we
is.
have Hinduism, we have Buddhism, we have Jainism, we have different sub-religions and different, like, tribal cults that have still followed from God knows when.
Yes, yes.
And a lot of that, I'm sure when you studied Ayurveda and stuff like that, you must have read up about the mythologies, how colorful they are, how
Oh, yes.
profound. And I think, for example, Hinduism technically could be like the oldest living pagan culture still, with all the mythology, the pantheons of gods. It's evolved over the years, of course, but it's still alive and living. And in a way, when I was a teenager and I was discovering Wicca and everything, and they'd be like, oh, light a candle here, like the ring the bell there, like the incense. I'm like, this is a fucking Hindu temple. What are you talking about? Witchcraft. It's Hinduism.
You straight up took it straight from us, yo. I mean, like straight up. I don't know if you know this, but I wrote a book back in the mid 2000s called Slave of God, which was centered around a Devadasi. And so it was entirely set in the Raja the First, Raja Cholan's the First, his dynasty. And it was a story that I wrote for medieval Indian culture. So that to me was so, it opened up so much more awareness for me as far as, because you have to peel back so many levels of cultural lenses that are laid over Indian history. You've got the British colonial lens that you have to peel away to get to authenticism. You've got who am I trying to think? The ones that came in, oh my gosh, I'm blanking out on the name.
The Mughals, the Portuguese.
Thank you, the Mughals, that's what I'm thinking. I didn't even think of the Portuguese. But tell me about that.
Have even colonized quite a lot.
You have to, in order to get to authentic, what was the history? It's so hard, I felt, to authentically find those voices.
And the thing is, that's why I think one of the most beautiful things about a country, minus the shitty political situation right now, well, that's all over the world pretty much. But at least you got rid of Trump.
I mean, things are better. Let's talk about it, right? But it's an imperfect system, that is for sure.
I know.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Anyway, so what I was saying, like, despite everything, I think if you think about it, all these ancient religions have survived despite everything put against it. And somewhere it's like, I would say, even if you look at the reemergence of neo-paganism or Wicca, that means that there's some ancient force that's pushing through all the taboos put by the Judeo-Christian cultures and everything. Maybe it's goddess energy, maybe it's whatever, but if you think about it, like, look at in the 70s, Gloria Steinem put the goddess Kali on the cover of a magazine, the first issue, right? And in a lot of, I think in CERN, the scientific research thingy CERN, CERN, they have a big statue of Shiva doing his dance and everything. And I think, like, you know, these ancient cultures, which white people call archetypal figures for humanity, I'm sorry, but it's true. White people have to justify everything with scientific terms, right? Can't you just say it's magic and there's something up there?
I know, I'm with you on that. I totally subscribe to that concept myself. I mean, I went through a phase where I had a profound loss of faith. Have you ever experienced anything like that?
I'm kind of going through it now in many ways.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, not loss of faith. Like, I do believe there's a spiritual system and all, but I want to talk about the fact that, you know, especially courtesy Instagram and YouTube spirituality, you know how people would say, oh, this pandemic is the extension, the soul harvest is coming, and crap like that. This is big in extension circles on YouTube and all.
Okay.
And at first I was like, okay, maybe they're onto something because they were linking all sorts of stuff. But then as I got into it, I was like, no, they're just peddling QAnon.
Oh.
Yeah, and that's the thing. A lot of spiritual YouTubers were closeted Q believers. I mean, I'm not taking names because God knows they'll sue me or whatever. But it's true. They were all talking about, like, the Grand Cabal leading it all, the elite taking over the world, and this is our time to ascend and cross over. I think the Law of One became really popular the last couple of years again because they talk about the soul densities and harvesting. And at first I was like listening, but as they slowly revealed the QAnon beliefs, I'm like, oh, why did you have to do that?
That is such an appropriation. Oh my God.
No, but it's true. And the thing is, maybe they may not be typical right-wingers or whatever, but they started passing off a lot of QAnon-related conspiracy as spiritual knowledge. I was like, what crap? What
Yeah.
crap?
Yeah.
And then in India, we already have a situation with way too many godmen and religious people going all about how this is our time to kind of go into spiritual exile and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh God, in a pandemic, you're just trying to fleece people of money and stuff.
And you have to watch that because that's just it. So we are vulnerable as an entire worldwide population right now.
The good thing is like, I think because of all my spiritual wandering, since I think I was a preteen or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
I've kind of, my bullshit detector has become really strong. So whenever I feel like, people have tried to get me into all sorts of things and circles and prayers, I'm like, nah, no.
I'm good.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, for example, I don't know if you know, there's this energy healing system called pranic healing. I
Oh,
don't know if
yes.
you've heard of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
The pranas. Yes.
So, yeah, so when I studied it for the first time, I was like, oh, this is interesting. It's linking the chakras to energy, kind of like Reiki, how to heal. Okay, cool. But then, it was kind of very pyramid schemey that, okay, you've done one level, now go to the next. And I did just to learn whatever I needed to learn because there are quite a few interesting spiritual concepts. But then when they wanted to go into the ascended levels, they're like, we now have to work towards becoming Paramhansas. I'm like, what? They're like, this is now the next protocol you have to do. You have to become vegan. I wasn't vegan because of that. I became vegan for a year just for myself. But they're like, you have to become vegan. You have to give up alcohol and cigarettes and weed. I'm like, I'm not giving up my champagne and weed. I mean, hello, I do yoga. Shiva used to do crazier stuff than that in the mythology, right? I mean, there are so many pagan gods in different cultures that do drink alcohol and smoke weed and do drugs. I mean, look at ayahuasca and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I'm like, who are you to make this spiritual moralism that this is the only way to live? I'm like, no. I think that's what I hate. What I personally don't like is when people join these things to ascend because they have this ego telling them you are a spiritual person, you should ascend, you should become all saintly and all. I'm like, oh, bitch, within 2 minutes you're going to start shouting at your maid or whatever.
I love it. Oh my God. Oh.
I'm sorry, I'm probably going to disappoint a lot of your readers or your listeners who are into all the stuff, but yeah, I'm sorry. I see through all that. It's not real because I guess this is where my yoga-ness comes in, and that's like, we always learn that, at the end of the day, the truth is in your heart. You don't need someone else to tell you what's real or what's not. Obviously, you need a scientist to tell you the earth is round and not flat if you believe it. But like, you know what I mean? Like on a spiritual level, you know what's true. You don't need someone else to tell you that you're living an immoral life or you're living a tamasic life, to use a yoga term. And who made these rules? These rules were made by men in power. They were not made by women. They were only made by men to oppress people below them. And as a feminist, whenever a man tells me to, by man I mean a straight man because gay men are way better.
They have an awareness, let's be honest.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, whenever a straight man in power is telling you you're wrong, never listen to them.
Question that. Yeah. I agree.
Because let's face it, since when have straight men thought about the greater good?
Okay, maybe a few. I'll leave the door open, but you know what? Smash the patriarchy. We are united on that for sure. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Let's close it.
Again, no offense to the straight men listening, but I'm sorry, you guys covered a lot of baggage over the history of humanity.
And I think that's a hard challenge for the men who want to be part of the change. That's, going to be the big challenge for generations that we move forward with.
Well, can I say something about the men who want to be part of the change?
Yes.
So some of them are the spiritual YouTubers who I was talking about earlier, who was secretly QAnon, sometimes I just feel they just want to say they're part of the change just so that they can hook up with girls who are into spirituality and be like, align my chakras, Guru Aaron.
Right? Yes.
And that happens because these are the guys that post shirtless thirst traps on their Instagram. I'm like, what are you trying to say?
Yeah. What's the meta message here? Honestly.
Yeah. And it's like, if you notice, some of them, they literally are talking down to you. They may sound all smart or whatever, but just pay attention.
Yeah.
They're actually talking down to you. I don't know if you've noticed that, but I've noticed that quite a lot.
That pedantic tone can kick in, and it begins to sound that very like authoritative. And yeah, tell me, before we go, I wanted to talk about new decks. So I have a new deck to show off. This came as a recommendation from one of my dear friends who also subscribes. Her name is Antonia. Antonia encouraged me to get the Crow Tarot. Get the heck out of here. How did this happen? You guys, we didn't plan this. We did not. No way. I told Zorian just to have some decks nearby if he had any new decks to talk about. I'm freaking out.
I love this deck.
Oh, tell me all about it, because this is not a new deck. This is new to me. This is not a new deck. So don't think that this is a new phenomenon. Tell me about this. This is blowing my mind.
Oh, I love the Crow Tarot. I think the Crow Tarot is one of the most beautiful tarot decks of late. And I think the artist MJ, how do you pronounce her last name? I'm so sorry.
I think it's Welsh, or Gaelic. I think it's Killane. I think the L's get kind of rolled into a Y sound. So
Alyssa?
Killane. Uh-oh, can you hear me?
I can hear you now. So Cayenne.
Yeah, I don't know. I could be totally off base with that. I have no idea.
Well, Crow Tarot is brilliant. I think every tarot reader should get it because, I've had the most eerily spooky, accurate readings with this one.
I haven't read with it yet.
I actually predicted Biden would win over Trump with this.
What card came through? Do you remember?
Yes, I do. So I first pulled, if Biden wins, what will happen to America? And if Trump wins, what happens to America? So Biden winning, the card was the Six of Cups. And Trump winning, the card was, I think it was the Devil. Yeah.
That is so accurate.
But here's the thing. I pulled cards on who will actually win. And so Biden got the King of Wands, but Trump got Two of Cups, sorry. And I was like, so I said that Biden is definitely going to win, but Trump is going to have a lot of people who love him, support him. Well, you saw how close the race was. It was barely any margin.
I know.
And then we saw what happened at the Capitol.
Yes, that was absolutely, speaking from, I know this has gone on a very long time, and I know we're nearing almost midnight your time.
I'm sorry if I ramble too much.
I mean, hey, let's just keep it rolling. Let's give us another 10 minutes to talk here, because
Sure.
I think this is great. And honestly, this is kind of segueing. I don't usually talk about politics on my channel, but it is interesting to me to actually get an authentic exterior view, someone who is outside our country, because I can say from living from the inside last year and my own sensibilities, it was hell. And it was, every day was just like, what fresh hell is this, to quote Dorothy Parker, and feeling so completely out of control. And honestly, all you could do was hide because of COVID and just protect yourself. And that we have our, certainly so many of the cultures that are part of our country are being violated, the violence being perpetrated against them, of many different cultures, and you feel so helpless. to affect the change that you know needs to happen in this world, and so specifically being played out on the American stage. That's how it felt to me. And I think once upon a time, I'll close my analogy by saying I saw the meme where a Canadian meme said that being a Canadian is like being living above an apartment of a meth addict's apartment. And I said, well, how do you think we feel being locked inside the meth addict's apartment? Because I mean, we are the ones that can't get out. And yeah, so that was kind of yet another, but I thought that was at least an exterior view. If we can, if you wouldn't mind sharing for a couple seconds, how did you see things playing out? What was your perception?
So honestly, none of it kind of freaks me out because we are kind of in a very right-wing fascist regime at the moment. So like yours began in 2016, ours began in 2014. So, and unfortunately, ours is still kind of going on. We have, if you tell America had a Karen problem, you've not seen Indian Karen.
Oh my God,
They're
is that
crazy.
true?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we are currently going under a second wave. We have a nocturnal lockdown at the moment. People are complaining. People are still insisting on going out without masks. It's crazy. There are political rallies happening with thousands of people without masks. They are encouraging like temples to be open and have religious festivals like the Kumbh Mela is happening and people are having no masks. I mean, literally last night there were 7,200 new cases and people still acting like it's nothing. So, and there's still people, unfortunately, who believe that it's a government conspiracy.
So that's fascinating. It's not just a subset. It really is playing out such a similar dynamic.
It's globally all over the world. Like I have a friend who lives in Germany, and so she's half Indian, half German, but she's married to a German guy. And so she was living in India, but when COVID happened, they moved back to Germany thinking it'd be safer. Well, she's living in a small town near the Black Sea. And the first thing she said, she's like, Nazis are coming back in fashion.
And it's a fact. And even there, wow, it like played out in literal. I mean, it's the rise of fascism.
It's real. And that's what really scares me. It's like, it's real. And even though I'm happy Trump lost, but what I'm really scared is like, it's real and it's happening and it's all over the world. But unfortunately, I mean, I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but we live in a country where the media is censoring a lot of stuff. Like, literally, you can't say things about the government on our media over here because they've arrested reporters. Some reporters have been tortured and stuff. So, yeah, so it's not like it was alien watching what's happening in America. I was like, okay, now you guys know what we are going through.
Yeah, I remember you posting a lot of that. And the fact of the matter is, I am ignorant and I don't know enough about what is happening in your country.
Oh, that's okay. I mean, see, at the end of the day, a lot of the media that's going outside of our country is not even talking about what's going on in our country. So you literally have to really dig deep on the internet to actually find some authentic news sites and get away from all the right-wing the fake news websites that are up there. It is really insane, but like I said, we are in a pandemic. What else can go wrong?
We just got to keep going forward and believe in the hope of a new tomorrow. I know it's coming. I know it's been horrible, but I know we're going to get there.
Well, it can't get any worse. That's what I believe.
Please
like,
let it get better. Well, Zorian, thank you for being with me here today. This has been a supersized episode. You have been so gracious with your time. And tell everyone one more time where they can get in touch with you and follow you on Instagram. Your Insta handle is?
So my Insta handle is Ajnajog, which is AJNAJOG, Ajnajog, one word. And can I just finish off with one little thing I just wanted to
Please,
share?
absolutely.
So this is like something I like to tell anyone who's interested in discovering more about the tarot, because I've been reading tarot since I was 11, right? So, but the thing is, what I see happening so often, people buy a deck of Amazon, they read the little booklet that comes with it, and they start reading for people and start charging money for it. I just want to say that, don't treat it as something frivolous. Treat it as a proper field of study, because if you open your heart and your mind to the tarot, you can actually discover the secrets of the universe in ways you can't imagine. Do some research, spend some time studying it. It's a fascinating field of study. And no, don't fall for the certification scams out there.
Oh God, no, I know. And you know what's really weird? The same dynamic plays out for henna artists. I'm a henna artist and have been for 20 years in
Yeah,
the country. And the exact same dynamic plays out, even including certification. They try to, like sell you on that. Don't buy a henna kit and like some stencils for God's sakes and you're going to go charge for appointments now. Have some respect. Learn your art.
exactly.
Find out what you're doing, learn the medium. There's like mistakes to be made, so don't make those, and be respectful.
Exactly. And more than that, like even henna, I'm sure you know about the ancient symbology of henna in Indian culture and stuff like that. I mean, I've never been one person to whine about cultural appropriation, because I believe culture should be celebrated and loved, except when, people disrespect them, which is what I, yeah, I know, right? We're living in a material world, aren't we?
Yes, honey, in bed with Alyssa, that's for you.
I love that. So yeah, coming back to the tarot, I
Yes, please.
think, respect it and actually take some time to study, journal it, talk about it, look at it. You know, you have no idea how much you're robbing yourself of a magical experience just because you want to dive right in and have a side hustle because you got bills to pay. And treat and honestly just keep reading, not just the cards, but read books about it. There are a lot of good books out there. There are a lot of resources. Go to the internet available. Do your research. Talk about it. Unfortunately, Eclectic is not as operational, but find a good circle of people, study it, because you are holding a deck of magic in your hand. Why not make that magic work for you in ways which you can't ever imagine versus a quick buck?
A deck of
Sorry if I got
magic. I love that.
sorry if I got too preachy, but that's something I just wanted to share with anyone curious and stuff.
I absolutely agree. And thank you again for taking all this time out on your Friday night, ringing it out here just almost midnight, I guess, for you. Is that right?
Well, it's 11, but it's not like I had plans on
Oh,
Friday night.
I can't do the math. I'm not good at math.
Neither can I.
Thank you again, my dear. This has been
Thank you
delightful.
so much, Alyssa.
I so appreciate it. And yeah, thanks again for joining us here on Destination Unknown. And